Gary Pinkus, great to have you here. We're defining what breakaway leadership looks like in this moment, and particularly what it means for the workforce. How do you adapt when technology is shifting at breakneck speed? What's your role as a business leader versus a government, whether that's lacking, whether you like it or not, you have to make choices today for a future that is unknown. You come with some scary facts about the roles of robots, but you also want to debunk some myths, Gary, and I want to start there.
Sure.
Talk us through it.
Well, maybe I'll start with an anecdote, and not surprisingly, much of this is, of course, driven by technology in all of its multiple forms. But I read a tweet the other day that I'm going to paraphrase that kind of captures for me a bit of what's going on here. When I was a kid, probably like many of the people in this room, it was very clear that you did not get into a car with strangers, right? Your parents told you that, never get into a car with strangers. As my kids were coming of age and the internet was coming of age, I was equally clear with them that you do not meet people over the internet. You do not connect with somebody over the internet, et cetera. And now, flash forward to where we are, I'm routinely advising my kids to get into a car with a stranger who they have summoned through the internet to drive them to somewhere, because it saves me the hassle of having to drive them. So we clearly have made a shift in the way we think about technology and what it can do for us relative to some of the places it can hurt us. And I think, to your question, we are seeing, and it is the cliche, this massive disruption as consumers, but also as industry, as technology sweeps through almost everything that we do. And that has gotten portrayed in much of the popular press as job loss, job loss, job loss. Robots are going to replace all the jobs. AI is going to replace all the jobs. But if you actually look at some of the more underlying facts, and let's just start with where we are right now, the Journal came out about a week or so ago with a report that showed there are, for the first time since we started recording this in 2000, more job openings than more people on the unemployment rolls. So that's a striking figure, which says it's actually not a job loss issue.
It's a skill
There's
issue.
Something else is going on. Exactly. It's a skill issue.
To be fair, it's your headline. I mean, it's McKinsey that said up to 15 to 30% of workers globally will be displaced.
Sure.
I mean,
yes.
I remember that a few years ago. I was like, whoa. But you're saying actually we're going to have more jobs as a result of robots and automation in the future. We just have to make sure ultimately that we're skilled enough for allowing those workers to gain those jobs.
I think that's well said. And there were two headlines I think that we published kind of successively. That
the second one was kind of quieter.
That one was, well, you're right. Sorry, three, which also then got to the reskilling. The first was that right now, using today's technologies, 50% of all activities done in business could be done through automation, be it through a robot or through artificial intelligence or some form of deep learning, could just be replaced today with today's technologies. We then aggregated from that said, okay, that doesn't mean all 50% of jobs disappear, because those are activities, not full-fledged jobs, and said over the next 25 years, 15 to 30%, the figure you quoted, of jobs will disappear in the world writ large. We use computers as an example, and I could pick multiple others. Everybody thought the computer was going to replace a whole bunch of jobs, and it did. But if you go back and do the math, since the computer was popularized, we've had almost 16 million net new jobs created as a result of the computer. So of course jobs were lost, but jobs were also created through the technology.
Where are those jobs going to be created?
Well,
where do we need to look?
So again, not surprisingly, the math says the lower cognitive skills jobs, the more manual labor jobs, are mostly not disappear, but they're going to go down by somewhere in the neighborhood of 15%. The ones that will continue to survive and will actually grow will be things like healthcare. So basic manufacturing work is going to go down. Healthcare work is going to go up. Similar skill base, but different sector. And then the obvious places you'll see increases. Anything that has a technological capability required, particularly if it's a deeper capability, not basic coding, but also soft skills, managerial skills, creativity, the ability to integrate, organize, the ability to write. I tell our McKinsey people, the McKinsey I joined, you had to be able to write a fluent sentence. The McKinsey I work in now, it's not quite as much of a requirement as it probably should be. And that is, I think we're going to realize we've let something go by virtue of letting that part of the liberal arts not become as much front and center in work as I think it's going to need to be going forward.
We speak to business leaders on Bloomberg all the time, and one, they say that they're shocked by how quickly things are changing, and actually the improvements that automation's making already. But at the same time, they're very split on how prepared they feel for the shift.
Yep.
And you can break that down in terms of private companies and public companies. A public company that's vetted on a 3-monthly basis, making these kind of investment decisions for the long term, where you don't even understand actually how fast technology will move and where it will move is really in 5 years' time, let's say. How prepared are business leaders that you speak to?
Well, so by their own description, and to be fair, the surveys we've done have been larger companies, so think of it as more classic Fortune 500. I think the figure we had is 64% of CEOs would say they are not prepared for the reskilling required within their workforce. I think smaller companies have an advantage because they can actually solve most of this problem by hiring the people that they need.
But you just told me there's a skills gap already in the United States.
There is, and well, go ahead, finish your question.
No, go, tell me.
Okay, so the skills gap is existing, but it is disproportionately in the companies that have a set of skills in place now.
Okay.
So if you talk to Randall Stevenson, and he's been quite vocal on this, as he looks at what AT&T has, they have a complete mismatch between the skills that they need, and in particular are going to need, relative to the skills they have in place. So they have started a massive reskilling program working, I think, with the University of Georgia.
Yes.
To do that. But if you're a small company, then you have the ability, and a small, particularly growing company, you could probably solve some part of this problem by just hiring the right people as you go. If you're a big in-place legacy company, it's a reskilling issue, unless you believe you can fire 30 to 40% of your workforce and replace them by hiring 30 to 40% new people. And I don't think our society actually could stomach that at scale.
Okay, show of hands in the room. I'll come to questions, don't you worry. Show of hands in the room. Who personally feels prepared in terms of skills for the next 5 years to adapt to technology change? If you do, put your hand up. So that's about 30%.
I was just about to say it's about the same as our numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So on a business level, on a corporate level, if you're running a company, do you feel prepared in terms of getting the staff that you need, reskilling workforce for the next 2 to 5 years? Yes, if you put your hand up if it's a yes. What about for the next 10 years? I can see 2 people. We like your confidence. Yeah, I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
What do breakout leaders need to be doing today? What do they need to be thinking about?
Well, so you can solve this problem first having a point of view as to what the technological need is going to be on the part of your workers, right? Actually understanding as best one can, recognizing that technology is moving faster even than we can imagine. But having a notion of here's the skills we're going to need based on where technology is going. And I can tell you for us, we've started that process. Particularly as we think about our consultants, we've taken a forward-looking view of what's going to be required by our clients, backwards integrated that into what we're therefore going to have to do, and then looked at the people we have relative to what we're going to need. And we've started a massive program. So we've hired, for example, almost 1,000 people in some form of artificial intelligence just in the last 5 years. That's off a base of almost 0. Prior to that number, because we just realized our clients were going to be demanding a different level of insight than our regular, using an Excel-based spreadsheet was going to be able to provide them, and we needed people that could do that. So you have to do some of that math going forward, and then say, what does it mean, and then shift your hiring. The reskilling part of it is the trickier part, right? Shifting hiring is easier than figuring out what do you do with the people you've got.
I looked at some of the reports that you've talked about. You've also suggested that 375 million workers around the world may need to switch jobs, 100 million of those in China alone.
Yeah.
For the likes of Germany and the United States, you're talking about a third of the workforce, and we're talking 12 to 20 years. I mean, that's a massive challenge. I look at what China's achieved in the last 24 hours in terms of what's going to be required as far as things like soybeans are concerned, perhaps in the future. They make an order. They plant things, they fix it. Who's got the greatest challenge here? Is it the likes of the United States or is it other countries? And where does America as a country break away?
Well, so I think you're on a very, very important issue, right? Which is we have, at least to date, shown a failure for government to intermediate this problem, which means it's probably going to have to be the people in this room writ large. That business is going to have to come to, either by virtue of reskilling services that we offer other businesses or by virtue of making a plan for reskilling within our own corporations. I just think waiting for government and hoping that that's going to solve the problem isn't going to work. China, I suspect, will be different. I think government will actually provide a good part of the reskilling, or they'll just replace the workers with 100 million other workers that are skilled differently. And if you look back into our history, we've had this kind of challenge before, right? It was the shift from an agrarian society to a manufacturing society. But we did that over, call it a 25 plus, 30 plus year, and high school was actually the thing that started that process, right? So government did come in to create mandatory high school requirements, then helped build the high schools, and that was what created an educated enough labor force to be able to do what was required in manufacturing that wasn't actually required in farming. I don't think we're going to have the luxury of time, and at least based on what I'm seeing in Washington, I'm not sure we're going to have the luxury of the government solving that problem.
You've mentioned AT&T. I could mention Walmart as another example, Starbucks, who openly in the past year or so have said, okay, we'll offer you the opportunity to retrain here. You can continue working. There's ultimately no payback. We'll allow you to skill yourself.
That's right.
Do we need to see more of that?
I think we do, and I think you could say some of those programs will be truly altruistic, which is we're just, as part of our benefits we offer employees, we will offer the potential to skill beyond perhaps what our needs are even for you, but we therefore create a more skilled workforce, some of which we'll use, some of which others use. I also think there's some interesting work going on looking at more certification level skilling or micro certifications that could then be transferable between companies. And so companies coming to some agreement that if you're certified as a linesman, that is, you can go out and repair trees and repair lines, you can work across multiple different companies and even different industries. Anybody who's got some sort of pole that needs either fixing or needs trees trimmed alongside it. And so if we can get certifications for some of these more basic capabilities, they can then transfer from company to company.
I mean, who coordinates that?
I think this will end up looking a little more like the internet, right? There won't be so much coordination. There'll be agreement amongst a large enough group of manufacturers as to what this looks like and what a certification looks like, and then that becomes the standard. I mean, you'd love to believe the government would come in and create standards here, but that could be a little like waiting for Godot.
No comment. Right, let's open it up to questions. Sir, you were very eager earlier. Go. And try and keep it to the topic if we can, please. Otherwise, I'll ask another one.
Hello. My name is Russell Perry. I'm the CEO and founder of Company with a K. We're a regulatory technology company for KYC, anti-money laundering, etc. And we focus a lot, of course, on AI and automation in order to automate, make the regulatory processes less of a burden, more of a competitive advantage. But what we have seen with one of our clients out of the big four accounting firms, the problem really wasn't only about efficiency and increasing the efficiencies, but effectiveness, but also to bridge a know-how gap in the market. So this is in Germany, large market, of course, highly educated workforce, but the basic problem they had was in order to comply with all the new regulation also for their clients, there is no know-how in the market anymore. So our platform, we actually had to reduce some of the technological advances and features just to make it adapted for a workforce that is less educated but can use the tool to become more effective. But do you think, the question is...
Make it quick.
Yeah, do you think, I mean, we have the technological innovation changes rapidly progressing, right? But do you not think that the human factor here is also being disregarded because there's not enough time to actually catch up with the innovation? And how does that impact the future of work?
Well, it's interesting. The theme for this conference is around the paradoxes of leadership. One of the key paradoxes here is paradox of man and machine. And my personal opinion, and I think there's reasonably good data to back it up, is this is not going to be Elon Musk, the machines are going to take over the world. This is going to be this interface of man and machine. And so there's going to be points at which the machines are ahead of how we can use them, and there'll be points at which we will be ahead of what the machines are capable of doing. And finding that kind of ongoing, and I don't think you solve it perfectly, right? You may build capability into what you do that people aren't yet ready to use, but they will be eventually. So you don't not build the capability in, you just don't, in a sense, expect them to use it initially.
And to be fair to Elon Musk, he did step back from that line as well. Right, but there's an interesting point there about Germany as well and the vocational training that we've seen in Germany for many years and how that's put them ahead. Next question, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Make it quick, if you don't mind.
I'm done.
2 lines.
I'm done. I'm Stuart Sugarman. I'm CEO of Atolo Capital. We're in tech and media. Question is related to AI. There are advances in AI, specifically in natural language, that enable your consultants to do things with companies at unbelievable speed and unbelievable accuracy. I'm not talking about regulatory. I'm just talking about the business of being a consultant. So you can take information from your client and literally generate reports instantaneously, okay? That still requires an educated consultant to interpret it and then present to their company.
Yep.
I would like to ask you, how is natural language generation specifically and linguistically impacting your business with your consultants?
Yeah, the short answer is not much yet. And the longer answer is I think it's going to have exactly that effect. I think we're going to see more and more. I don't think it's going to be our final reports, but I think at the first version of the proposal, it will be much more of we're going to put a bunch of information in. We will see something come out. We will then work with that to add all of the higher level thinking we have and then be able to come back to a client and say, we think we can do this. And it'll save us what would have been a week or two of work up front. But we're not there yet. And I don't think any of our competitors are. Famous last words. Okay.
Great. He's not out of the job yet. Madam, please.
Hi, my name is Melissa James, and I'm CEO of the Tech Connection. We help connect diverse talent to tech companies, and we do it by using AI to help us look at their personality type, then by skill, then to the role that they're going to. So what I'm curious to learn more about is, like, you're talking about reskilling. I've been in recruiting for the past 7 years. It's extremely difficult to assess whether or not someone is capable of reskilling.
Yeah.
So I'm curious
That's
to know,
a great
like,
question.
what are you seeing in the marketplace in the way that companies are assessing an individual's ability to actually have, like, learning agility to address this new approach to thinking? Because I think it's much more difficult than just enrolling them into a classroom and saying, hey, come learn this new skill. There's so much more to it. So I'm curious to see what
Yeah,
I
the
like
short
that question.
it is a great question. The short answer is I don't know. And then
an honest answer.
Yes, and I'll give you a slightly longer one, which is I think, and from what at least I've seen so far, so I haven't seen anybody the opposite of this, I think companies are basically enrolling anybody in that's asking for the reskilling because their job has disappeared, and then they'll let whether or not they're able to make it through the course be the determinant as to their capability, as opposed to pre-qualifying them. But there may be companies out there that actually are pre-qualifying faster. I just haven't seen it yet.
That was always the point of college or university.
Yeah, which color is your
Proving
parachute?
the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have 2 minutes, so you have to make this question really quick. Thank you. Actually, it's 1 minute 36.
Hi, Ron Lovett, RFL Group of Companies. Just a quick question about your advice on hiring for new companies that are into uncharted territories. You know, you don't know what you don't know with new roles. How do you hire for those types of roles? I find it really challenging.
I think it's a classic case of don't overhire, so you keep yourself with more variability. And I think if you can have a rough sense of the broad skill, we do very much focus on technical skills, which tend to be more specific. Some of the other, what I'll call higher level skills, this cognitive ability, be it pure intellect or the ability to connect with people at an emotional level, those are actually increasingly measurable by pretty good tests. That you can, and we're doing this now with all of our people. We have tests before they come in that just give us a sense of what the raw material is. That gives you more flexibility that as jobs or needs change, you can say, well, we asked you to do this, but we know you're capable of doing this, and we'd like you to start doing this now. And so I think the more you can hire for a profile and less for, I need a data scientist that can do this, the more flexibility you'll have with your own workforce.
EQ, emotional intelligence, becomes more important.
I think it's going to be certainly as important, if not more important, for managerial jobs. What we're finding, interestingly enough, with AI is the actual raw technological talent of a data scientist. That's easier to find than what we call these data translators, the ones that can convert an understanding of what the science can produce into a business-ready application. And that involves some EQ. And that actually is the much more critical skill to find, or more difficult to find, I should say.
You could leave us here chatting for about the next 10 hours, but we're out of time. So, guys, thank you so much for taking part. Gary Pinkus, McKinsey's.